Welcome to Creative Piecemeal Podcast, a podcast for creatives. I'm your host, Tammy Takeishi. Join me for compelling conversations with artists, actors, authors, musicians, and other creatives about the impact of the creative and fine arts in their lives and our ever-changing world. Thank you for listening. Hello, and welcome to Creative Piecemeal Podcast. Today, I am joined by Julie Randall, and today's podcast is going to be a little bit different than usual. We'll definitely touch on creative things, but I am really honored to have Julie on the show because she is the best-selling author of a biography entitled Patient 71, and Julie is a cancer survivor. She was diagnosed back in 2012 with an advanced stage 4 metastatic melanoma, given months to live. And she, of course, broke the odds and is doing great. But she wrote about her journey in the book Patient 71. And I've had a chance to read some of it, and it's just so touching. And I'm honored to be able to give you this platform to talk about not only your book and your message, but also just shoot the breeze. And so welcome, Julie, to the show.
Hey, I'm really happy to be here. Really excited to talk to you, Tammy.
So usually I start the podcast with who or what inspired someone to become what they are. Obviously, you found yourself becoming a writer and an ambassador and person who raises support and awareness of this particular type of cancer and does charity. So we obviously know what inspired you to get there, but can you sort of backtrack and tell the listeners a little bit more about your story without giving away too much? Because I definitely want them to go out and buy the book.
Yeah, so I guess I'll start from where I was at before I got this diagnosis. So I was 50 years old. I lived on the northern beaches of Sydney, which is a absolutely pristine, sought-after place to live. You know, I had the 2.5 kids and a dog and a husband. And leading up to this, I was turning 50, and I wasn't happy about turning 50, you know, and I even called it my 40/10th on my birthday invitations. You know, I thought I was really clever and funny, thinking I don't want to turn 50. And it turns out that was the least of my worries. But so I was a sporty person, fit and healthy, so I thought, and just living that fast-paced, active kids, active social life, and just thinking that life was just starting to, like, my kids were teenagers, and my husband and I planned our first trip away from them to Japan. We were going to go skiing in Japan, and then this story takes a little bit of a twist and turn in a totally other direction. So, yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about what you've been doing since your book release? Is there anything in particular that you would like to promote or highlight?
I love telling the story because it's a story that inspires hope. So that's why I do it. I lay in the dark in some of those horrible cancer days when I was before immunotherapy, when I was on chemotherapy. And I was like making all these bold promises, like, if you get me through this, Mrs. Universe, I'll write a book. You know, I'll get up and speak in front of, I don't care how many people are in the audience. All the while I had little monsters jumping around in my head saying, you can't do that, you know. But I'd made these big promises. So at the other end of the story, after writing the book, I realized that your mind tries to keep you safe and in your comfort zone, and there's just so many more things that you are capable of doing. And when I say you, I don't just mean you, Tammy, I mean all of us. And we tend to sit back and listen to these voices that tell us that, no, that's not for you, that's for other people, when we're trying to reach a goal, or, you know, we have a dream of doing something. So that's one of my biggest my biggest messages. And I guess the other one would be, don't wait till you're told you're dying to start truly living and achieving your dreams. One of my biggest things now is human potential and delving into our potential as humans. And I never would have gone down this path had I not been stared in the face with death and had been able to ask myself questions about, once again, laying in the dark. So you're going to die, because that's what I was told. Are you happy with how you lived? And, I was a good person. I played a lot of sport, but did I live to my potential? No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And I've found out since that that's the truth. I didn't, because I've been able to achieve a lot of things that I wouldn't have done prior to this. So that's kind of the overarching message for me. That's kind of jumping right forward to the end, but yeah.
Yeah. So you found a whole new well of courage and ability that was in you, but you didn't realize it until you were pushed to the brink, essentially.
Yeah, that's totally true. I sort of, if I can jump back a little bit to my diagnosis. So I go to work 5 days after my 40th party, and I distinctly remember driving along. It was June, but winter here in Australia, and I was driving along, just practicing gratitude, which is something that I hadn't done a lot. I do it a lot more now, I can tell you, but back then, and I was going, oh, how lucky am I? I'd gotten over the turning 50 thing and thanking the universe for my kids and my dog and my house and my job. And I think my husband even got a mention on that morning, Tammy. So it was a good day. And then I go to work, and then I go out for lunch. It was just all beautiful down in Sydney, by the Opera House. And then I go back to work, and my boss asks me, my work colleague asked me, what did you have for lunch? And I stare at him and I can't answer him. And in that split second or split few seconds, I knew I was in massive trouble. I could feel this feeling in my brain that I'd never felt before. And then my world, the world went black, and my life changed forever in that very, very moment.
Obviously, nobody wishes for bad things to happen to them, but I'm so glad that you are alive and well and able to share your story and inspire others. Do you find a lot of people reaching out to you who have had similar diagnoses as yourself?
Oh, yes. That's my give back. And I have so many people doing that I do it because I do lots of things now, but I also have a job. And yeah, cancer affects you financially as well as everything else. So I work very hard. So in the morning on my way to work, on my way home, anybody who reaches out, we have a conversation, and I support as many people as I can day in, day out, because I know how it feels, and I know the feeling inside, and it's like this loneliness. Even though you might be surrounded by 40 people, it's so lonely because nobody knows what's going on inside of you. And so I do that. And when I was going through this, I was trying to find a role model, and I was trying to find somebody that I could reach out to, and somebody that I could say, hey, how did you do it? But sadly, Tammy, there wasn't a soul in the world that had survived. Not that I could find anyway. And I thoroughly believe, because once I got involved in treatment, I saw a lot of graphs and stuff in, metastatic melanoma, pretty much 100% death rate. So yeah, I did and do find a lot of people reaching out to me.
And I know in your book, what I have read, you talked about missing your mom, who had passed from cancer several years prior. And then you also talked about when you thought you were going to die, and your thoughts about leaving your own children behind. And I thought that was just absolutely touching, because a lot of, people don't always think about like what is the patient thinking about losing or leaving behind. People always think about like, oh, the patient is leaving.
Yes.
They don't always think in the reverse,
No, and they don't. And I have spoken to a lot of people about this, and everybody feels the same, especially mothers, probably fathers as well. Yeah, everybody just that I've spoken to says, my kids, what are they going to do without me? I don't want them to be without their mom. And I guess in the book, when I talk to my mom, and I'm 50 years old at this stage, older than that now, but even at 50, I wanted my mum. I wanted my mum. Like, I just wanted to run to her, and she wasn't there. So I wrote to her, and yeah, in heaven, and yeah, she showed some signs here and there that she was around, and that's all I could do. And because I knew how I felt that way about my mum, and I wanted her, that only kind of illuminated the fact that my children, who were way younger than me when my mum died, how much they would want me if I was gone. And yeah, it just sparked off a whole lot of actions by me to try and do my very best to stay alive. In fact, I promised them, because they were absolutely distraught when I told them what was going on. And I kind of even sugarcoated it. I said, oh, I've got cancer, but I didn't say, hey, I've got stage 4 advanced months to live cancer. But even that was enough for them to sort of wail and cry. And they just kept repeating, no, mum, no, mum. And it was just absolutely heart-wrenching. And as a mum, you just go, I'm like, I'll fix it. I'll fix it. I promise I'll fix it. And once again, and I talk in my book about the mind monsters, and they're not all bad, but they dance around, and it's, that's like, how are you going to do that? Why are you promising your daughters that? But my train of thought around that, my feelings, and was just like, I just want them to know I've done everything I can. I'll go, literally the ends of the earth. I'll do anything. And if I don't make it, they'll know I gave it my absolute best shot. So that's what I went with.
Yeah. Obviously, we're so glad that you did, and that you were so tenacious, and that you didn't give up. And, the title of your book borrows from the fact that you found an experimental study in the United States, and they only had room for 70 patients. But because of your tenacity, because you didn't give up, and you believed in your right to live, that you became essentially patient 71.
Yeah, that's right. So I'd been on chemotherapy for X amount of months, and I was lucky enough, I think it was a very low percentage of that it would, and I've got my fingers in inverted commas here, hold things for a while. Very low percentage, but I was lucky enough that it did, and it did hold things, but it was not going to be the answer. And I was told that very clearly from the get-go. This might buy you some time. This might buy you some time. So while I was lucky enough that it did, in the background, it's like, okay, I need to plan, I need to be one step ahead of this thing, After a few months, maybe even 6 months of the chemotherapy, I was looking around, and I was trying to find like local answers, but there just, as I said, there just wasn't anything. And finally, after an appointment one day, our local oncologist we said, oh, how long's this chemotherapy going to be working? And he sort of nonchalantly said, oh, it won't be working in a couple of months. And a few things fired me up around this, like a promise to my daughters, the fact that I say a story in the book about saying to my husband, you have my permission to be happy and meet someone else. And then he didn't really argue strong enough. So I'm like, no, piss off. That's not going to happen. And then finally it was, this isn't going to be working. So that's when I just went in, started researching, I found the clinical trial in Portland, Oregon, and it just talked about this immunotherapy that teaches your body how to fight cancer. It doesn't fight the cancer itself. It sits on your T cells and teaches the cancer to seek and teaches your body to seek and destroy the cancer. And I'm like, oh, that makes so much sense. It's not like killing my good cells and bad cells. And it was early days, and it was just straight out of, the rats, and it was phase 1, but they were having some people respond. They didn't know for how long. It could have been months, it could have been whatever. But in my gut, in my heart of hearts and in my gut, I thought, I need to be there. I need to do that trial. So I just got a bee in my bonnet and a determination, like, I'm going there. I am going to be part of that trial. And they said, you're not an American citizen every time I try, and then they come back, oh, what if you die here? You're not insured here. And then all the while I'm thinking, I can't accept that I'm going to die because I don't come from America. That doesn't sit well. And then they talked about the trial being full and the drug company not taking any more people. And that's when I think, I always say, may or may not have talked about the Hippocratic Oath over the phone to them, that this is, in layman's terms, basically says, if you have something, a drug or something that can help somebody, you really are at liberty. You must, to do so. You must help them. And look, that's probably not the case. They probably could have easily got away with not accepting me, but something in them, or one of them, just went, hey, she's not giving up, this girl. So then I get a phone call, just like it was an appointment at the dentist, and they just, in their American accent, just go, hey, Julie, what date would you like your appointment with Dr. Erber? And I'm like, can you imagine me? This has been 3.5 months of begging, pleading, people saying to me, look, they're not going to accept you. Do you want to be a lab rat? All this sort of stuff. And finally I get the call, and I'm like, oh, what? And I think I had to go off chemotherapy. I didn't tell anybody because it was actually still working for me. They didn't want it in my system. And I think we sort of had weeks to pack up and get over there and organise children. And I feel like I'm talking about someone else when I tell this story, because I can't tell you how hard it was.
Mm.
But hey, worth it. I'm still here with my children, and I've become a grandmother.
Oh, how exciting.
Yeah, I've got a 3-month-old little baby girl granddaughter called Vienna.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, I know. So like, all of it's just so worth it now, and so worth it that I get to help others. And I do, speaking now. I've been back to the US 4 times. It's just crazy. I can't believe it's me. But look, I really love my life now. As tough as it's been. I just love the fact that I'm able to reach my potential and help others. It's just such a blessing.
That's fantastic. We're going to get to know you a little bit more in other ways. When you're not busy championing for other people, what are some things you enjoy doing just to kick back?
I love music and singing. My husband plays guitar and I sing along. We're not going to be, at Nashville or playing anywhere anytime soon, but we love it. So that's what we do, and we jam with some friends and have a great time doing that. I still love my fitness. So I love to walk and ride bikes and kayak and that sort of thing. Watch some Netflix. That's more my husband than me, but we get into that sort of thing. Look after my little grandbaby now and hang out with my daughters, of course. And my eldest daughter owns a dance school with 630 students.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so she's got a lot going. That's the one that's had the little girl. So when I was diagnosed, actually, it's when my book first got launched in Australia. It's only recently been launched in America, but she had a little school that she started in a community hall, and she had, I think, from memory, 13 students. And I remember my husband was like, he just wanted to be able to buy her this big dance studio and give her all this money. And we weren't in a position to do that because of what had happened to me. And we ended up selling our home, and which people say small price to pay, but you know what, it's not. However, not complaining, I'm still alive. But we weren't able to help her in that way. We just encouraged her, and you know what? Best gift we ever gave her, not being able to help her because she has done it all herself. And now she has 600 and something students, and called her dance school Monsters of Dance. And it's so successful and so amazing. So spent a bit of time with her and helping her do that, and do a bit of writing still. I'd like to do it, love to do another book. I plan to do that next year.
Wonderful. I'm so glad to hear that you do, you find creative pursuits and are able to refill your cup before giving to others, because that's definitely so important to have that balance.
Oh yeah, it absolutely is. Yeah, I do some talking for New South Wales Health, which here in Australia, and that's one of the biggest things we talk about for carers. In their cases, it might be nurses, doctors, whatever, but really it's important for all of us as humans to fill our cups before we go and try and help anybody else. Because I use the analogy, I hope that's the right way to say it, but if you're on a plane, what do they say to you? Fasten your mask before you help anyone else. Or if you're in a car, you put your seatbelt on before you put somebody else's seatbelt on. And might sound very minor, but it's actually huge. It's actually huge that we do that for ourselves in whatever shape or form that takes for us. For me, it's, a little bit of yoga, a little bit of meditation. Say to myself, I'm going to write a page today. I'm just going to, and when I achieve that, I feel great. I'm ready to go, good to go to help somebody else.
Writing a biography is a completely different task than writing like poems or fiction or, a movie script or something. It's filled with a completely different kind of vulnerability and emotion. And what proved to be some of the hardest aspects of completing your book?
It was hard emotionally, and I cried a lot. Prior to doing it, I had promised that I would do it. As I said before, lying in the dark, I'll write a book. How are you going to do that? Like, I think one of the little monsters said, you didn't even pass English. How are you going to write a book? That was just, in my mind. And I'm like, well, I've promised I'm going to do it. And then I just kind of broke it down. And I just broke it down to, hey, Julie, can you tell a story? Yeah, I'm not bad. I can tell someone a story. Can you write? Well, of course I can write. Okay, then you can write a story. And that's not saying that at that point I think I'm going to write a best-selling book. It's just you promise to write your story. So I sat down, and I remember exactly where I was. I was back in hospital, and it was for something pretty minor, but I had to stay in there for a week. It was like I had to get a skin graft because I still get little skin cancers, but they're not melanoma. They're not dangerous, but they are if you leave them there for too long. So I just sat down, in hospital the day after my operation. I went, okay, here we go. And then I just wrote the words. It was June 21, 2012, and telling the bit about driving along, that I told you before. was a beautiful day. It was this, it was that. And you know what? Couldn't stop.
Mm.
And it got to the point that I think I was up to chapter 20, and I said to myself, I'm not even in Portland yet. But it was kind of like this creative Julie, or not even creative, but storytelling Julie took over, but she wasn't going to miss out on any of the important things or any part of the story. And I knew that I had a publisher sign me up, which was great. Like after about 9 chapters, I had a publisher sign me up. So that was great because I knew, as scary as it was, I had it. I got a small retainer. I had to do it. I had to finish it. And in the back of my mind too, I'm like, there's editors. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be just tell the story. And that's exactly what I did. And it got, yeah, very challenging at times with certain parts. And it went back and forth with editing a lot, which it was rather tiresome. And you have to read over your own story like over and over and over and over again. I was like, well, once it was done, it's like, I am not looking at that again. But during COVID, I actually did read it again. That's kind of how it played out for me. And as you said before, it's not fiction. You're not trying to make up anything. I don't know how good I would be at that. I don't think I would be very good at that at all. But the story's the story, and there it is. And just lay it out there. And that's just what I do.
Yeah. And I love how authentic it is. I mean, there's no barriers between the reader and what you're going through. Like you don't hold back. You're just so open and honest about everything, your fears, your hopes, like how much waiting, all the waiting that people go through, and everything. And I also love the fact that you talked about the things that you did to try to distract yourself that very first night in the hospital, because anyone who's been in the hospital for anything, it's hard to sleep, you're uncomfortable, you're anxious. Everyone always turns on the TV, but do they really watch the TV? And I love that you included that aspect. It's so relatable.
Yeah, because you do anything, don't you, to try. And I was in a room with, I think, three very elderly people who were very sick. And at that time, I didn't know I was very sick either. I'm like, I'm thinking they're going to come to me and say, look, we've made a big mistake. You've had a migraine. You've had a, because I did not feel sick prior to that at all. And yeah, so it took them 24 hours to actually come to us. And by us, I'm saying my husband, Scott, and I, and tell us what was actually going on. So I'm in this room going, oh my God. So yeah, I was watching reruns of cartoons, and I think it was a show called Flipper, and anything just to distract myself, and singing songs in my head. And it's a tough gig, and anyone who listens to this and has been in that situation or knows someone who has will know how tough that is. Yeah, the waiting.
What are some hopes that you have in the new year?
Well, obviously spending time with my little granddaughter is going to be amazing, and just watching her grow, and so that's exciting for me. Also, my plan is to do more keynote speaking. I love speaking. Who'd have thought that I am comfortable to be uncomfortable, getting on stage talking to, it's been up to 1,000 people at times now, whereas prior to that, I was frightened of my own shadow when it came to anything like that. So I really plan to do more of that, and just really encourage people to understand that just because we have a voice that tries to keep us in our comfort zone and tells us, no, we can't, you better not go out of the cave, because that's where it all, stemmed from, the caveman, that we know that that's not necessarily our truth. It might be a thought, but it's not necessarily our truth. And what I do now is I will say to that voice, because I still get it, it's not going to go anywhere, but I don't fight it. Some people say, oh, fight it, tell it to F off, tell it to, you know, no, I don't believe it's good to fight with yourself or your mind or whatever, because it's only trying to keep you safe. It doesn't understand. So I say, oh, thank you for that. Thank you for telling me that that could go pear-shaped or I could die, because that's what it thinks. But you know what? I'm going to do it anyway. So why don't you come along and, we'll have fun. That's what I say to that part of me. And that's how I've learned to do it. So that's what I love to speak about, and just don't wait till someone taps you on the shoulder and say, hey, your life could be ending soon. Start doing it now. Do it now. Make a plan. Make a promise.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, well, I talk about my journey, of course, and tell the story, but I have those lovely messages that I love to impart. So that's where the speaking comes in. I want to start writing again. I would like to do like a transformational memoir. So I tell parts of my story with what I learned from that part of my story.
Ooh.
Yeah, just to talk to others about you, because hopefully for all of you people, you don't fall down and get a diagnosis like I did, and you don't need to. But my mind taught me so many different things about life and about what I thought was my reality and what I thought I was capable of. So that's another 2024 thing that I'd like to start and move forward with, and just live my life and be happy. And whilst planning for the future, just live in the moment as much as I can. And you do learn to try and live in the moment when you're going through what I went through. Because sometimes the future seemed pretty bloody grim, as us Aussies would say. So plan for the future, but live in the moment.
I love that. Plan for their future, but live in the moment. I feel like I need that emblazoned all over myself, like everything.
Yeah. Yep.
Because I'm a little bit of a worrier, a little bit.
Yeah. Most people are, and look, I worry too. We're human. We're absolutely human. But if we can just say, I say to myself all the time, okay, is this getting you anywhere? Worrying about this today, is it actually is it getting you anywhere? And I say no. Okay, so it's not. And then sometimes I even plan a time to worry about it. I go, you know what? Why don't we worry about this in the car driving to work tomorrow for 10 minutes and just see if we can come up with a solution for that. If we can't, we'll reschedule, because otherwise you're just constant worrywart, right? About things that you can't change. That's just a couple of my philosophies that have come out of my journey, but it helps. It really does help.
That's excellent. Yeah, definitely something I'm going to try myself. And it sounds like fantastic advice that obviously helped you keep your mindset and keep your spirits up through all that.
Yeah, it did. When I was in America and no one was with me and I didn't know anyone. I mean, I knew the people at the hospital, but I didn't really know anyone. And I finally did meet some people. But when I was on my own, it was so hard. Just, I had a constant, I call it my solar plexus, and I think I'm right. Scientifically, there was a constant drag, like that I was away from my family. I didn't know whether I was going to live or die, and I would just have to go, hey, you're alive now. You're alive now. What are you going to do? And okay, I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to go for a walk now. I'm going to look, go to that neighborhood and look at all the pretty things. And that's what I'm going to do now. Okay, what are you going to do after that? Okay, so then I'm going to go and buy a really trashy magazine. I'm going to buy a fashion magazine. But it was all about that day. And then I'm going to talk to my family tonight, instead of thinking things just going to go really pear-shaped for me. I'm going to get really sick. I'm going to, be a person, an unrecognizable person. I'm going to be over here in America. I might even die here in my family, and then, I won't even be at home. I mean, there's so many places you can go, and I think I could probably be forgiven for going there back in that situation. However, us as humans, just living day to day, tend to catastrophize things like that have way less chance of happening than what I'm talking about. And that's when you just have to go, hey, enough of this worry wart catastrophizing my life,
Mm-hmm.
and looking up in the sky and going, how beautiful is that? Oh my God, I'm such a nature person. I've turned into a nature person, and I just stare out like, from my laundry window. Get this, I've got the best view in the house. We live in an apartment now. And I'll get a chair and I take it into the laundry. My husband thinks I'm nuts. And I see the sunset from there. At nighttime, I'll sit there and watch planes fly over and just get the biggest joy from that. The biggest joy. And think, wow, I'm still here, and look at the sky and look at those planes. They can actually stay up there in the air, and all this stuff that I wouldn't have ever done before. So that's just some stuff that I'd love to impart on people, to just start looking at nature and the earth, and how, I'll say bloody again, as us Aussies do, how bloody lucky we are to be part of it.
Yeah. I love that you have the capability to just appreciate not only being in the moment, but just being, and then being grateful for the simplest of things, everything from like the seasons changing to the sunset to just, a good meal.
Oh, yeah, a storm. Oh, I love a storm. I get so excited, especially when you look outside and there's an electrical storm.
Mm.
Yeah, just those crazy, crazy things that I know a lot of people don't even take notice of. They don't. And I've even seen it in my husband. The last place we lived, we were lucky enough to just have this amazing view. And now I've got it from my laundry. We've moved down the street, and he never looks at it anymore. And I'll call him in to sort of look at it. I'm like, how can you just not have that anymore and not even try to see it? I know that might sound a little bizarre, but so much appreciation for that sort of thing now.
Do you find yourself taking bigger risks, whether it's like trying an exotic food or a business risk or anything like that, since you've been on your pathway?
Yeah, but more in terms of, for me, more in terms of like speaking in front of people and this kind of stuff, like even going on a podcast would have freaked me out years ago. They're more of the risks that, yeah, I haven't jumped out of a plane or anything yet, but probably only because I haven't had the opportunity. But, something like that, I must say, I'd be thinking, Julie, what are you doing? You actually came back from the dead almost. What are you doing jumping out of this plane? But yeah, as far as food and stuff, yes. Yeah, I do take more risks at what I eat. But as I say, it's more about what I do in terms of get out in the world and tell my story. I'm interviewed on stage by people, and that can be a little bit scary. And your mind says, what if you go blank? What if, what if, what if? And that's when I have to say, oh, well, it's not going to kill me. you know, come along for the ride. It's not going to kill me if I forget what I was going to say. You've probably noticed I talk a lot anyway. So, yeah, that's probably never going to happen.
It's good to have podcast guests that talk a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes I think, okay, be quiet now. Let Tammy talk.
So you talked earlier about how you and your husband play music together and sing. And I don't know if you know all that much about me, but I'm a musician and a music therapist. for a
Oh,
living. So
that is beautiful. I love
thank
that.
you. And
Well, part of my job, you know how I mentioned about that I had a job. Well,
mhm.
my day-to-day job, I do 3 days a week, is work at a school for underprivileged children and children with problems and children that haven't been fit into mainstream education. And we have a music therapist there who does absolute wonders with these children. So I really love that you do that.
Thank you. Yeah, I absolutely love it so much. The reason I mentioned it though is I was curious, did you find music just in general as therapeutic to you during your healing process?
Oh, I can't tell you how therapeutic that was and still is to me. If I've had a busy day or whatever, just takes me to another place. As we went through this, and as you probably move through the book, you will see like my husband and I would play music and sing along, and you can't be singing a song and listening to music and worrying at the same time. I challenge anybody to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So so while you're doing that, you're not worrying. So there's another little tip for you. And I will do that, or not for you because you would know that, but maybe for your listeners. And I do it all the time. And I just get so caught up in whatever song I'm singing, good or bad, the lyrics of it, the story behind it. And it's my go to, really. And it really helped me get through 100%. We would go out to bands and see bands in
Oh,
between
cool.
treatment. Yeah, yeah, that's how much we love our music.
Do you have a favorite band that you'd like to sort of give a mention to?
At the moment, I'm right into country music and I'm right into Morgan Whalen. I also been listening to a lot of Sheryl Crow, and she does some tunes with Kid Rock that I really, really love. Scott and I love to listen to the Eagles and that kind of music is mainly where we go. Like I love Keith Urban. Yeah, Carole King. We're oldies, don't forget.
Those are all good. Those are all good ones though. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we find now with our kids. Our kids listen to our music and love it, which is great. So James Taylor, we love all that kind of stuff. Yeah,
Nice.
Scott has a few more modern people, that 2023 people that he listens to, which is really nice as well. But for me, I'm really loving the country at the moment. We had the chance to go to Nashville when I went back to, both of us went back to speak for the drug company, and we loved it so much. We want to go back there, actually. It was great. Music is healing, right?
It certainly makes people feel good, boost their mood. It gives them opportunities to process and cope with whatever they're going through, or just to relax.
Yeah, and as silly as it seems, sometimes we forget to do the things we love the most. What I mean by that is like sometimes I'll be driving to work listening to talkback radio. I mean, I do like being, in touch with what's going on in the world and politics and stuff. But sometimes I say to myself, after they give you the fifth horrible negative story that's going on, I think, Julie, what are you doing? And I'll just flip the station to the tunes and the songs come on and I will, turn it up full blast and think, this is where you should be, not back there in that negative world. So I guess it's a balance, isn't it?
Mhm.
Everything's a balance. So it's
Yes.
learning to do that dance and yeah, balance everything.
Did you have a theme song at all that you would sort of return to a lot when you were through your cancer journey?
Yes. And I had a mantra that I would say every day. The theme song was, I'm just trying to think what band sings it, whether it's a Australian band. But anyway, there's a song and it says, I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never going to keep me down. That was one of them. And my mantra, which I still don't know where I got it from. If I made it up, I don't know. I tried to look it up when I wrote the book and I couldn't find where it came from. But I would run and walk, run, whatever I was doing at the time, and sometimes on the treadmill. This is me trying to stay fit and healthy through chemotherapy to get over to US. And it was, I am happy and healthy. All my organs have healed. My body and my organs have healed. I have faith in life. And I would say that over and again. So I put myself in the future because my body hadn't healed at the time. But that's what I wanted it to do. That's where I wanted to be. So I would say that mantra. And I made a big vision board with, healthy me, grandchildren on it. And people say, do you think that, is why you survived? And I say, look, no, I needed a drug that I went to America for. Did it help me cope? Did it help me stay healthy for the 9 months that I was in chemotherapy when I only really had 9 months to live? I didn't get over there till I was 9 months into the journey. Absolutely, that helped me stay sane and relatively healthy in my lead up to America. And then I continued it, obviously, because it had worked for me so far. But yeah, not trying to claim that was all I needed, but it was definitely a huge part. And yoga and meditation did all the things. Diet did all the things.
Yeah. And mindset is so important. So important.
Yes. And it's not just me saying that. There's studies around it. Can't roll them off my tongue right now, but basically a patient with a positive mindset versus a patient with a negative mindset, the positive mindset either lives longer or has more chance of being cured, or you have to sort of look it up if you want to know more about that. But it's a thing. It's not pie in the sky. It's not pie in the sky at all.
So a couple more questions. These are going to have absolutely nothing to do with the book. These are just quirky questions.
Okay.
And one is, what is one of your favorite meals at your hometown restaurant?
Oh, easy. It's what we call here surf and turf. The surf is prawns, or you call them shrimps, right? We call them prawns. So, and the turf is a steak. Okay, so that's the turf, and surf is the prawns, and salad. Yep, that's my favorite meal. Love seafood, love steak. Yeah, I'm not a vegetarian.
That sounds really tasty.
Yes, you can do it too.
It's interesting because I've never had surf and turf. I've had shrimp and I've had steak, but I've never thought to put them together.
Oh wow,
personally.
my yeah, no, okay. So my hubby, very good cook. We do it on the bar. We call it the barbie. You guys call it like a cookout or
a grill, which is not nearly as cool.
Yeah, right. So we have barbie, and he does both on the barbie, and the prawns or shrimp sit right on top of the steak. Beautiful, and it looks so colourful because you've got like the little orange and white thing sitting on top. Very cool. Yeah, that's my favourite. I'm just going to call out to say that that's what I want tonight. Can we have surf and turf, please, Scott? Thank you.
It's on record. Now he has to make it.
He has to. I might have to wait till tomorrow night. He might not be prepared, but yeah, he's a very good cook. He looks after me.
Oh.
Yeah, I look after him too, but in other ways.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
What is one of your favorite movies and what does it reveal about you?
Whoa. One of my favorite movies. Okay, does it have to be a movie? Can it be like a series or?
Oh yeah, TV show, documentary, yeah.
Okay, so I really love Sex and the City and Just Like That. follow up. And what that reveals about me is a few different things. That also is escapism for me, just to watch stories and relationships. And what it reveals about me is I love fashion. I absolutely love clothes, always have. I love relationships. I love that is the most important thing to me, especially my marriage and navigating 30. What are we at now? I think 35 more years together anyway. I think maybe even 37 years together, maybe. And as my mother told me, it's no picnic, and it's not. But I love working stuff out and living in my commitment. And like that's not right for everyone. I mean, if it's really terrible and there's no working it out, I get it that people need to part, but I love working on relationships. And I'm one of 5 kids. You'll actually read this in the book, what my mother said. My mother was a very funny woman, very funny. And I challenged her once because she would say to us, once you're married, that's it, you're done. And I said, okay, so what if your husband cheats on you? What if they go? And she said, oh, that's easy. You shoot them. And yeah, it was either one, it was black or white for my mum. So it was very funny. But I'm one of 5 and we are all still the same partners. So it's funny how that philosophy has kind of stuck with us. But yeah, so back to Sex and the City and just like that, that's all about relationships and navigating them and etc. So that's what I love about that. So I usually have to wait till Scott goes to bed because he can't stand it. Quite clearly, he doesn't have the same philosophy as me. So yeah.
Yeah, it's always good to have a good show that you enjoy binging and just watching for comfort. For
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Love it. It's kind of, it's like the music, but just sort of at night time before you go to bed, just like staring, not, worrying. Yeah, love it.
Excellent. Well, Julie, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Is there anything else you'd like to share with the listeners before we go?
I always like to say that if anybody is going through, tough times, especially a diagnosis, that always believe in hope. The world is changing quickly, especially in the medical arena. You need to take your life into your own hands, literally. And what I mean by that is listen to your doctors for sure, but do your own research. And, if you get some doctors love to say to you, oh, you've got this, so you've got months to live. That's just a bunch of statistics. It's not you. They don't know you personally. They can't tell you how long you've got to live or even what's going to happen. Just, hold on to that. Hold on to that hope. And, call on the courage and the tenacity. And where possible, live in the moment while you're planning for the future.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Julie Randall on the podcast talking about her book, Patient 71. Listeners, please check the show notes for links where you can learn more about Julie and purchase her book. It is available worldwide. And as always, thanks for listening. Thanks for listening to the podcast. Like the show? Have a question? Stop by the Facebook and Instagram pages. Links are in the show notes or search for Creative Piecemeal Podcast on social media and click follow for all the latest.